All right, audio is working. Here we go. Let's get everything set up. Synchronize these live and live. Already muted. Dismiss that. Okay, this is ready. This is ready. So, hello everyone who might already be here, and/or hello everyone watching the recording afterwards. You can skip the first minute or two, but I'm starting later than I initially thought I would, so I'm not going to allow too much time for people to show up. So apologies to anybody about that. As always, we're using the NOAA bathymetric data viewer for the world map now because Google Earth constantly makes the stream lag and like glitch out, while the world map via the bathymetric data viewer does not do that. And uh, the bathymetric site it's like the world map, except it's more for the seafloor. It's like a high res, high definition of the actual seafloor, seabed, with exact depths and shapes of stuff. With a few exceptions, like this one unmapped triangle here in between Sardinia, Sicily, and mainland Italy, that Italy, for some reason, has not done surveys on to get an exact map of. Can you guys get on that? That would be nice. I know it's a Mediterranean thing to just like, I guess, snap all day and whatever. Or what was it? What's the stereotype in Italy? Let's see, something pasta, soccer, Mediterranean naps. You guys, no, you guys aren't the wine drinkers. That's France. No, France is champagne. Is it the wine thing in Italy? You guys got to get on that seafloor survey, though. So let's see. We got anybody for? Yeah, that's probably enough. All right. So before we get going on the major political stuff, I'll do the financial thing from the title, and that is copper prices have jumped up to and exceeded their previous records. They briefly, the last day or two, have gone up to and over $6 per pound, which is the highest they've ever been, both nominally and I believe has exceeded their previous real value records when adjusted for inflation. We can check real quick though. So just going here real quick, and if anybody not familiar, go to any of my videos uploaded in the last year or two. There's this link down here, free access drive. Takes you to a Google Drive with all kinds of data and graphs and stuff. They don't look as good as professional websites, but they're free to access. Whereas many professional sites are putting stuff behind a paywall now. See, watch this. You can go to 5 years. You can still go to 10 years for now on TD Economics. But you go any further than that, if you want the entire history, you hit the paywall. There is no paywall here. Let's just check. Inflation adjusted prices. Oh, nope. Looks like back in that looks like around 1970, throughout the early 70s, looks like it did inflation adjusted pass up over six. Okay, so this is a tie then. This would be a tie for its highest ever real value price. I need to go back and look at what happened in the 70s. Oh wait, I think that was when there was a lot of uh the fascist and/or slash communist, like uh different versions of like dictator regime revolutions and stuff going on in South America, like Chile and Peru and stuff. So that would have been causing heavy disruptions from one of the largest supplying areas of the world. All right, that makes sense now. But copper has gone up to and over $6. It's back down to 574 for the moment. And the reasoning this time is a stack of different things. You have the basically confirmed permanent shutdown now of that copper mine in Panama, which was supplying about 1% of the world's total supply. We have some mild disruptions in Peru from some natural disaster stuff that won't be lasting forever. Chile was outputting about 6 million tons per year, but has declined down closer to 5 because over the last 5 years plus, they have basically stopped allowing any new mining permits or extensions of existing ones. So that has caused their output to go down. They've only allowed 2 so far, and uh, the new son of a literal SS officer who also happenstancely kind of has the leanings of an SS officer also, uh, is now the new president. Waiting to see what he does. If he starts like okaying the mining, we'll see, or if he's going to continue with the no new mining stuff. But that is continuing to weigh down on supply. There was a disruption at one of the larger mines in the Big Congo, and that mine was responsible for about 1% of the global output. And in Indonesia, on the island of Sulawesi, Indonesia's copper output is not spread out amongst a bunch of different mines. It's heavily concentrated in a few, one of which was responsible for 3% of the entire world's copper supply, about 600,000 tons per year. And that one is shut down because of a massive flooding and landslide incident that the mining company has said is going to take at least a year to restore and clean everything up from. So that's 3% of global supply offline for at least the rest of 2026. And then we have the constantly looming question of whether the copper tariffs will actually get implemented by the US government. So suppliers, companies, stores, everything regarding copper itself and copper products are over importing right now, are constantly mega buying everything to have an ample supply of stuff so that they can at least get as much of a stockpile up before the price of it goes up that they can continue selling from before they have to then start ordering additional new supplies in the future at whatever the higher price ends up being. But that in and of itself, that extra demand has also added on to the upward surge in the base price of copper. All right, so that is that. Let's check chat. Do we get anyone? Oh, here we go. Uh, I don't, I don't know where the Syrian thing came from. Like literally right up until the last second, it looked like everybody was fine. And I really kind of thought the Syrian government was going to be a bit smarter and want to like withhold and consolidate its the new Syrian military in the face of, you know, Israel keeping the stuff it pushed into and claiming, threatening that it's going to push further into Syria in the future. So I would have thought they would want to like consolidate stuff, join forces, maybe put stuff down there or something like that. But no, apparently now they're doing what the Assad regime did, and I guess are going on an anti-Kurdish spree because that's what everybody in the Middle East does now. Apparently, everybody, even Even the most otherwise friendly, seemingly stable person, everybody just wants to kill the Kurds for some reason. It's the Middle East, or the Arabian portion of the Middle East, at least. It's the Arabian portion of the Middle East's like favorite hobby is trying to genocide the Kurds. I'll look at more chat stuff in a second, but remember I was putting up the question previously after the quick 4 hour U.S. operation into Venezuela to do a semi regime change. Went in, bombed a number of stuff, and went out, took Maduro out, and the woman under him then assumed power, and we've had her under threat, constantly demanding that she just acquiesce to all the terms. And I was waiting to see whether she would, or whether that speech she gave about resisting the U.S. to the last drop of blood was, whether that was just propaganda, or whether she actually meant that. Apparently, it was just for the sake of saving face, because as of yesterday, she just caved to every single demand. The Venezuela has agreed to exclusively sell its oil to the U.S. and to allow unfettered access for U.S. oil industries. So, yeah, that was not necessarily exclusively the exclusive sales to the US was not like the primary angle. Again, the whole thing was just about getting access to get the Orinoco belt up to its full production output level potential that it has not been able to achieve. Uh, the exclusively selling to and through the US, I don't know, that was probably like a Trump add on for bragging rights. But yeah, it looks like the resisting to the last drop of blood speech was just propaganda because she caved to literally every single point on the list. So uh, that's done, apparently, in terms of Pentagon aims. That's Venezuela. It's out of the way. It's done with. Got exactly what they wanted. Oops, supposed to go back to the mouse. And let me drink some water real quick. Yeah, that was actually more bloodless than I thought it was going to be. Like, again, I was saying the whole time there's going to be no invasion, obviously, but I thought there was going to be like more of a striking and air campaign style stuff. But most likely, given the way things went, we almost certainly kind of did the smarter CIA briefcase full of money approach with some number of government officials and military generals in Venezuela, given how little resistance was actually offered. Uh, Clearly, we did the suitcase full of money approach on a number of different people, and by also the fact that they kind of just gave in to every demand. Now, I'm the one, uh, along with many other people throughout history, obviously, who, said in the past that we could have just done that the whole time with quite a number of these other scenarios, although there is the whole superpower requirement of once in a generation, you kind of have to flex. But Panama happened like a year or two before Iraq, and that was not really a flex. That getting rid of Noriega, you really, really could have just done the suitcase full of money because we were in contact with multiple of the generals around him, and then others we were not in contact with via the CIA after deposing him. Like almost all of them came up to us afterwards and said, what was this for? There's like 500 dead Panamanian civilians. This was unnecessary. You could have just offered us like $1 million, and we would have just handed you his dead body if you wanted. So, you know, the the suitcase of money option is always the better option if you can go with it. And uh, the Iraq invasion, was also about flexing, but it turns out we end up finding after the fact we also could have done the suitcase full of money thing because uh, Saddam, part of the way we found Saddam's location afterwards, and were able to get a hold of various insurgency and Al Qaeda leaders and former Iraqi generals, was through local like leaders, not sheiks, not tribal chiefs. I don't know what the like cultural town or village leader like term was, at least at the time in Iraq. But uh, basically, a bunch of people were like traumatized by uh, when we went like busting through a bunch of homes trying to get one of the former generals, and the like local leaders came up to the U.S. embassy afterwards and were like screaming angry at the guys outside, saying, if you want someone, you don't come in terrorizing people. You come to us. You pay us. We'll get the person. And so we tested that, and we offered like the village or the town, whatever it was, like a lot of development money, and said, here's this like Al Qaeda leader. If you know where he is, tell us. Instead of telling us, a car showed up the next day and showed up at the front gates of the embassy, opened the trunk, and the guy's dead body was inside, and they just dumped the leader's dead body at the gates of the embassy. So please use the money briefcase meme. It works. It really works. I promise you it works. All right, let's see. Yeah, that was I'm uh the uh the oil tanker seizure thing. I'm pretty sure that part was on purpose. Waiting for it, and, like letting it get that far up, and then like waiting, probably hoping that Russia would start sending ships out and threaten to like engage us, because they did outwardly say that publicly, that if we did, after they painted the really bad paint job of a Russian flag on the side of it, they did say, if you come near the ship, we're going to sink any U.S. and British vessel in the area. They didn't, to the surprise of no one, because they can't really, and also they were lying like always. But that part, I'm pretty sure that was waiting that long. I'm almost certain that was on purpose for that exact reason, to like get into that position, have them do that, have them make that threat, and then seize it anyways, for the sake of the inflicting the face loss on the regime. But everyone was doing like weird, kind of a bit over the plausibility line with conspiracy stuff, like saying that the oil tanker probably was like full of like 100 nuclear warheads or something. Unlikely. The most likely conspiracy-esque stuff would be that, maybe it had like been loaded up with gold, like I don't know, a bunch of the Venezuelan treasury's gold. If like say Maduro had assumed he was going to get to flee to Russia like Assad did, assuming Assad really is alive, haven't been given any proof of life, assuming that if he like assumed that he was going to get to flee, maybe he had like some portion of the Venezuelan national banks like gold put on the ship to take with him for himself. But that like anything beyond that is a kind of really questionable, especially the whole like 100 megatons worth of like dozens of nuclear bombs. That one's really not likely. Especially since the claim with that was that it was since the tanker originally had once been in Iran, people were saying that it must have been smuggling Iran's nuclear weapons out of the country, but that makes no sense because you're sending that out into the open ocean, then over to Venezuela, then across the Atlantic, with the high likelihood it's just going to get seized by the U.S. And also, big question mark, biggest one possible. Iran is right here on the Caspian Sea. If they were trying to get the nukes out, like the evidence of them, I guess, out and to Russia eventually, since that's where the ship was heading, they could literally just send it across the Caspian Sea. Like, and also Russian aircraft fly to and from Iran all the time. So there's no reason for this open ocean oil tanker conspiracy version of it. If they had nuclear stuff and they were trying to get rid of it, they literally could have just sent it straight north. That would be the much safer option to go through. Okay, now back to reading again. Uh, moving forward with DSM. What do you mean by DSM? The Greenland stuff, the Trump Greenland stuff. That, based on previous experience that we've seen up to this point about prior rhetoric, like the rhetoric about abandoning Ukraine, the rhetoric about isolationism and not doing anything abroad, and how he was pulling all of our troops out of the Middle East when he's done the opposite. Uh, best case scenario, but also pretty likely, again, based on the actual turn of events that has happened, is that this is a continuation of theater, similar to how, I don't know how many of you remember this, but this is not tied to a single president. This is stuff we've always done. This is Pentagon slash Defense Intelligence CIA level stuff. Do you remember back when Russia was initially prepping and or potentially just considering and testing the waters for its big Ukraine invasion? You may or may not remember, but there were so many articles coming out, so many news publications from U.S. media that then obviously disseminated through everybody else about how the U.S. military has done so many studies, and we've done so much analysis and war games, and we've concluded that there's no way we could defeat Russia. There's no way we could stop them. They're just too powerful. That was obviously BS. They are insanely weak, and their equipment is poorly performing and pathetic. Now, what I just described that happened in the 2 years leading up to the actual invasion, that's what's called a real psyop, not just labeling everything you see in existence as a psyop. That was a genuine, actual psyop. The point of that was called goading, which is when you provoke and keep prodding someone who says they're going to do something, and you want them to do that thing because, in this case, defense intelligence knew that this would effectively be the end of Russia's like military power existence. You want them to do that thing, but they seem like they're not entirely positive that they want to do it. Goading, for those unfamiliar with all English vocabulary, not goat as in the animal, but GOAD. Goading is when you keep prodding and poking someone, and you're doing the Star Wars Palpatine meme. Oops, hold up. Let me delete that. Palpatine, do it. Yeah. If you've seen whether or not you've seen it or whatever, but you're doing the do it meme, and it worked. Obviously in this case, and we've done that a number of times throughout the past. We even did that in World War II, actually, because you now that everything is like public knowledge and almost everything regarding World War II is no longer classified, you know, or it's public knowledge now that we were starting to do a massive rearmament and military buildup 3+ years before we even remotely got involved. Like before even the invasion of Poland, which is recognized as the official start. Although technically the Japanese invasion of Manchuria would kind of be closer to the real start, which was in 37 and 30 instead of 39. But neither here nor there, whatever, Eurocentrism or whatever. But we kept publicly, Truman kept publicly like going on and on with the isolation, not our problem stuff. And everyone kind of kept taking it. Like it let Germany stay bold enough that they just kept going with everything one after another, and Japan as well. Although uh, Japan then eventually kind of made a really stupid decision. If they were buying the isolationism stuff, this kind of would have ended it one way or another. But we had preemptively decided that we were obviously getting involved, as this was not, no one with an actual brain thought that this was going to be literally a one-time local thing of just Czechoslovakia and just Manchuria. Everyone, again, with a functioning brain. That does not include what was the British loser's name before Churchill? I forgot his name because he's a dumb loser. But literally everyone with a functioning brain knew that this was going to be a global war. But that tying into the Greenlit stuff, I'm in best case scenario, which I'm going to lean towards, purely because of how everything has kept turning out. That's a continuation of the do it theater. You continue putting on this NATO doesn't exist anymore. We all hate each other. Uh, U.S. Indo-PACOM alliance doesn't exist anymore. We all hate each other now. That part obviously being China's do it, goading them to just go through with Taiwan. And this, the aim in this regard would be to continue, encourage Russia to continue going, to continue pouring itself all in, or, as some people have suggested, but I might be clinging on to too much here in assuming that Putin is not this dumb, or at least that some of his military staff is not this dumb. People have been speculating that Russia, with what remaining equipment, I don't know, might try to attack the Baltics if it thinks uh, if it thinks NATO is like non-existent enough. Then in that rare scenario, this might be a do it moment of trying to like convince them they could pull this off. And then when they actually try it, they just get annihilated. But more than likely, it's primarily just convincing them that they should. They've already doubled down and tripled down, quadrupled down on trying to continue pushing through Ukraine until they get to a point where there's quite literally nothing left. If it's legitimately about Greenland, uh, then it's like with the tariff stuff constantly cascading and fizzling out into lopsided economic deals. If it's legitimately, if Greenland is legitimately about Greenland, then they're probably in reality going to try to pressure and go for something like the U.S. gets like full unrestricted access to do whatever, and I don't know, Denmark. Since Trump's thing, like with the wall, was constantly bragging that Mexico would pay for it, he'll probably take like uh, he'll probably have like we're going to build like 50 bajillion bases, and Denmark's going to pay for all of them as the bragging rights portion of it. But we technically already have unlimited access to Greenland, at least in regards to utilizing and building military installations. Some people have put forward that it's about oil and rare earth minerals. It's not. You barely actually even get access to those at the moment uh, because the ice is not gone, and also uh, we kind of have the oil set up taken care of. Then you include Brazil down there, and also we have quite enough rare earth minerals of our own that we have just not touched at this point, especially once you throw in Australia and Namibia. The issue with and actually back up home in Alaska, I believe they're primarily on the Kenai Peninsula. The primary issue with the rare earth metals is at this point that China still does like 70% of the rare earth metal processing, the refining capacity on the planet. So getting Greenland, for those on Twitter who are constantly saying it's necessary for national security because the US needs the rare earth metals, getting Greenland wouldn't change the, you know, lopsided refining capacity worldwide. Let There's Russia Ukraine stuff, there's the Iran stuff, and I think there was something with India also, but I forgot to write it down, whatever it was. So might have to miss out on that. Let me take a sip of water before I get into the next round. As for really long-term stuff, let's see, does this work out? Okay, like for really long-term stuff, for the U.S. Plus associated strategic partners, but even just primarily from the U.S.'s perspective, Yemen should not be read this early in time. I apologize about that mistake. This is the progression of history since the 60s and 70s and represents the US's like long-term strategic desired outcome. As again, what the Pentagon slash powers that be slash whatever Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, desire is that there is no threat remaining to the system. The system being just the, roughly agreed upon post World War II order. And you have red entities, which are direct opposition and threats, one way or another. You have pink entities, which are opposed in voice, but also kind of participate in because they want to benefit from at the same time. And then Afghanistan should not be read this early either. Sorry, I was working backwards, so I'll have to correct this. And then gray entities are those that are outside the system because of circumstance, because of like civil war and stuff. It's like 60s and 70s. Nigeria had a civil war, for example, and Colombia was in like constant drug lord turmoil for a couple decades. So back in the 60s slash 70s, obviously, Soviet Union was still around. All of Eastern Europe was effectively red. Uh, Libya, Egypt, and basically all the smaller Middle East countries had been constantly at war with Israel, so they were in the red. And then you had a few random redos in a few other places, and then, or Venezuela didn't turn red until the 90s, sorry. And then you start going forward, and you lose some dictatorships in a few places. Jordan, Lebanon, and Egypt go clear. Angola goes clear. And Iran had previously been white, but then they go red because of the Islamic Revolution. Then you keep going forward, and South Africa apartheid ends. They become not embargoed anymore. Namibia breaks free. Some civil wars end briefly. Late 80s, Eastern Europe breaks free from communist control, and Mongolia broke their leadership as well. The only one that was still there and still anti-system was Yugoslavia. And then the only issues over in the Western Hemisphere itself at that point, since the stuff in Colombia ended in terms of serious threats. The only stuff left in the Western Hemisphere that was an issue was Nicaragua and Cuba, and then Venezuela had become one. And then the Somalia Civil War started, which lasted for almost 30 years. And there, the only issues on the African continent were either gray or Eritrea, which is a non entity, and Libya. And then you progress forward. Yugoslavia splits up. Serbia stays red initially, and a few of the nations there are gray because of the war. Algeria has a brief civil war. Civil war returns to the Congo again. Taliban takes over Afghanistan. Soviet Union splits up. However, uh, Russia and Belarus remain initially covertly antagonistic, but then kind of dropped the mask after a decade or two passed. Then stuff starts to fade away. Afghanistan goes okay while we were there. Cambodia goes okay. Vietnam finally drops the anti-system at face value that they were still holding on to. China is now coming up into like big global business, but is still at face value, anti-West. Iraq gets de-ratified. Then, oh yeah, and the wars and stuff in the Balkans ended. Entire Balkans, even Serbia, is now all system integrated. Then you keep going. Yemen goes red. Uh, Myanmar is both still anti-system and also now circumstantially out of it because of civil war indefinitely. And Libya then it gets de-redded. Blood goes into civil war. Uh, as we hit roughly late 2010s or 2020s, Libya is internally divided, but is system integrated essentially. Sudan splits. North Sudan is now in a massive civil war that has resulted in the deaths of likely 2 million people over the last 3 years, but we're not positive. Afghanistan now goes gray in the presence of the Taliban. China goes red because they've made it pretty clear that they have uh, they have aims to assert themselves as a new global power center, and this is not where it ends. Yeah, here. Oh yeah. Then Syria gets de-redded, but these three, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, go red. Except I need to change this because Mali is no longer red. Actually, that was one of the things I forgot. After all the anti-Western stuff, Mali just flat out agreed, just like a few days ago or like a week ago, they agreed to just let the evil Western mining corporations back in to continue mining everything. So Mali is not as committed to the anti-Western stance as Nigeria, or sorry, as Niger and Burkina Faso. And I suspect we won't see this for another few weeks or a few months, maybe. But I suspect, as part of the deal behind this, they agreed to resume all the mining and mineral exports if Western militaries, since Russian mercenaries obviously can't handle it, neither can the Malian military. If Western forces return in some degree to deal with the fact that the Malian regime is rapidly seeing its control of the country collapse, both to the Tuareg separatists and to various African versions of Al Qaeda and ISIS in the southern portion. So I heavily suspect some kind of deal like that was what resulted in this. We let you back in, and you can continue mining everything, but you have to get rid of all the security issues and deal with everything since we can't handle it, obviously. Oh, that part. Sorry, I forgot that part. Somalia also is no longer gray because the civil war ended, and over 2022 and 2023, the quietly, secretly, while everyone was distracted with COVID, uh, trained and equipped by the U.S. and Turkey, newly like unified Somali army or Somali internal security force, actually in a really rapid, just a few months of operation, reclaimed like 90% of the country from the Islamic militant groups that had previously controlled it after the end of the civil war. So Somalia is now uh, both no longer red and no longer gray. It's actually now an integrated functional entity. So the aim, obviously, is, oh, wait, sorry, we also have to change that since she just caved into literally all the demands. That means Venezuela is now no longer red. So obviously, I'm hoping you guys can ascertain for yourselves the goal is that there is no red or gray on the map anymore. Not meaningfully, at least. Like if the Central African Republic stays in civil war for it's been in the civil war since its independence, basically. So like 6 or 7 decades. If it stays in the civil war for the next 2 centuries, the Pentagon does not care. Uh, zero cares given. Zimbabwe, no one cares about Zimbabwe. But meaningful things like Iran, obviously one of the remaining ones, Russia, Belarus, uh, China, Shunghua, rather, and North Korea, the meaningful ones, Pentagon would like to see no longer red. Now, the whole splitting up into multiple smaller nations aspect, that's not a goal. It would be a bonus. Again, from the Pentagon's perspective, it would be a bonus because smaller potential adversaries have less power to work with to begin with and are thus less of a threat. But if Dagestan and Chechnya and Tartarstan and everywhere, if none of that ever breaks free and Russia stays as it currently is in terms of geopolitical composition, the U.S. strategic decision makers, which to everyone's surprise and refusal to believe likely does not actually include the president, or almost no elected officials, obviously, uh, they would still be perfectly fine with Russia geopolitically in terms of its map composition, obviously remaining as is, as long as it dereds and just goes with the system flow. Okay, sorry for that whole long tangent running off of the Greenland question. Now, actually getting to things that were in the title. Iran, the let's see, that's Russia. There we go. Here's Iran. Uh, the uprising in Iran has spread to now hundreds of cities, and they're actually doing stuff. For one, I told you guys last time the protesters have overrun security forces in a number of places, and then actually like gotten weapons off of them, and are literally fighting these security forces. The Where'd Epic Pen go? Hold on. Get this. Ooh, £2. Thank you. Hold on. Then we delete. Then we open. Then we come back. Okay. Let's see. The separatists, especially down in Balochistan, were already fighting the internal security forces, but now we've seen the Kurdish and Azeri people starting to actually get violent. So looks like they smell the blood in the water like sharks. But the Iranian people are also actually fighting these security forces. And this one here, this was the they're not nowhere near like the scale of ridiculousness of North Korea, but Iran has its own, uh, state sanctioned like almost literally labeled state propaganda channel. Uh, their special building, their broadcasting building in Isfahan is, I think that's the third or second biggest city in the country. It was burned. It was set ablaze and is currently at this moment burning down. Protesters set that one ablaze. That's Russia, Venezuela. Here, became one of the signals where how we know it's like really turning bad. The government in Iran has shut down the internet and all other outbound communications entirely, including like landline stuff. Also, they're blocking everything except for anything that is state sanctioned. So there have been communications, there have been interviews like on Al Jazeera, for example, within the last day or two, but they're only allowing things through that are monitored now, and thus what anyone's going to say is going to be whatever they're allowed to say. So they just crashed. Everything's crashing to zero. They are shutting down everything to try to stop it. Hold on, see, mute real fast. I want to come through on the mic, but yeah, you got wall to wall, edge to edge on streets and everything. Some of these, show moments of death, so I can't play all of them. But yeah, like I said, the protesters themselves have actually gotten weapons this time. So now it's no longer just the IRGC or internal security forces gunning down protesters, which has already begun. The protesters are now actually getting kills on the security forces, uh, which is even being admitted by the security forces and obviously being spun around to be like, blah blah blah. This isn't the Iranian people. The Iranian people love the regime. All these people you see in the streets, they're all Mossad agents. They came out of a Mossad cloning facility, I guess. But yeah, it's all going. That's Russia. Here's more Iran. Can we get these any bigger? Oh, that is still bad. That is still bad resolution, but okay. But yeah, you're getting seas of people, oceans of people, setting more stuff on fire, including military vehicles. So I don't know. Is this going to be it this time? Is this it? I hope this is finally it. But ever since the first round that I was aware of and experienced as a teenager watching on TV back in 2009, I have kept getting disappointed because eventually uh, the uprising has consistently always given up after like 1,000 people get shot or so. So I'm hoping this time, maybe, big question mark, maybe they'll finally not give up, but we'll see. And for reasoning, in case anybody asks, for anyone not familiar, the reason why they are protesting the regime specifically this time is because inflation in Iran is way, way worse than a lot of other places. So the price of everything, rent, food, electricity bills, etc., has gone up by over 2 times over the last 2 years, and the wages have not really gone up. In some areas, they've gone up by like 20%, but that's 20% versus a 100% increase in prices, along with the fact that, again, a huge chunk of Iran's natural gas gets re-injected into its oil fields to maintain output so that they can keep selling the oil so that they can keep making money for the government, that is. And Thus, that leads to gas shortages in terms of internal supply, which leads to power outages in the summer, which gets people killed from heat stroke, from not being able to be cooled enough, has resulted in hospital failures, and also from people freezing to death in the winter because they obviously use a lot of gas heating, and those that use electric heating have also thus have power issues from the power deficit. So, and now also the water supply issue, which I just released the video on. So, it just like how South Africa does the power rationing constantly, where you know area A will have electricity between these hours, area B will have electricity between these hours. The Iranian government has started doing that with water access. So water will flow through your pipes and out of your faucet or your shower head or whatever only during these hours if you're in this specific area or this specific city. So there, the entire interior situation is like down spiraling. That is what has sparked everyone out into the street. And the president of Iran kind of just made this worse because he addressed, he made a special speech, saying he hears the concerns of the protesters. But here, let me draw a dude with his. Oh, that's a really long dude. Okay, hold on. You do more of the bathroom style dude. So get on here, then you have the legs like this. Hold on. Yeah, up for the shoulders, then out. I can't draw up a person. I'm not an artist. That's why Anya does the work for the characters in my would-be 2D animated series. So he basically just shrugged and said that he knows they have all these problems, but, and I'm dead serious, he phrased it as like, what do you want me to do about it? Or who do you expect to do anything about it? So he, in his attempt to address them, he responded to the everything they said they're angry about by saying, "Yeah, but like, what am I supposed to do? I can't do anything." So that didn't really sit well with everyone. So now this has made everybody much more angry, and so this is not going away. Okay. Uh, Israel, Somaliland. I I don't know. Like that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't really see a specific reason for it. Like people have said that they think it's because Israel wants to like build an overseas base there, but they don't really need to because they have unlimited access to the islands offshore of Eritrea. So again, if it's like about bombing Yemen, Israel already can do that from those islands. They don't need another one, and unless they're just they unless they just want to expand their reach for the sake of expanding their reach. But Netanyahu already has a lot of internal problems in opposition, so continuing with like further expenditure in that regard would just defer funds from other stuff and start causing problems. Like he already is going to continue all the wars indefinitely because he has to. Uh, Gaza, Lebanon, randomly bombing stuff in Syria, randomly bombing stuff in Iraq, occasionally bombing Yemen. He has to keep going with all of that because if he declares an end to the national security emergency, then he actually gets prosecuted and goes to prison. But as long as there's a national emergency, the Israeli president is immune from criminal prosecution. That's how their constitution works. So that's why, in regards to even if it's only minor, like once every 2 or 3 days bombing someone like Lebanon or Syria, that's why, in that regards, this is all never going to stop from now on, going on over 2 years of it now, because he can't stop it, at least until he's dead. But in terms of what's their deal with Somaliland, I can't honestly offer any clue. They're maybe like 10% weight on the whole. They want to dump off the population of Gaza there, but even then, they're probably still going to wait until that population whittles down more. Let me do the whole skull and crossbones thing, because the population's already, they've kind of hesitantly admitted that it's not 2.5 million anymore, that it's below 2 million. So they've tacitly admitted and then retroactively denied that over 500,000 people are dead. But those death numbers are continuing again from medical supply and food deprivation, and now from hypothermia, because unlike, say, Saudi Arabia, Israel and the surrounding Levant region actually does get kind of cold or maybe just cool in the winter. So if they do intend to actually do the full like deportation thing, they're probably going to wait like, I don't know, at least another couple of years until the population of Gaza has been like whittled down further, like maybe closer to only 1 million, until something that whoever they want to dump it on would consider a more acceptable number in quotation marks. Uh, blah blah blah. Yeah, China does. Looking at those two comments up there, China, unless there's probably stuff before I didn't read, so I might be misreading what you were saying, but China does actually kind of enjoy Russia's downgrade because it puts Russia into a uh, more much more malleable position to where China is the dominant say-so partner in any kind of deal, which Russia already acquiesced to. With the thing you mentioned, the new natural gas pipeline from Russia, in that China was constantly refusing to actually agree to sign the papers and start everything until Russia gave in to demands that no country would usually give into unless they were in a untenable position, which the position being that the entire pipeline will be built by and owned by China alone and Chinese companies, and that like Chinese and the Chinese companies, even from the Russian portion, will also get like half of the transit fees. That under no normal circumstances would Russia have ever agreed to that, unless Moscow is in so deep into a corner to where they even willingly will admit to themselves that they have no other choice but to sign that paper, which is good for China from a geopolitical perspective. You know, that this used to be in days past, it was Russia or USSR majorly dominant and China junior. Then for the last, up until the 2020s, it was presumed, at least, even by China, that the two were roughly equal. Now the balance has shifted. The balance has shifted dramatically. It's Russia who's doing the acquiescing to China's terms. So, in terms of like anyone wondering why China did not do anything more than the little bit of smuggling of electronics that it did to help Russia, it's because they actually benefit far more from Russia down spiraling and becoming exceptionally weak than they would benefit from Russia winning and staying strong. Yeah, now from China's perspective, letting Russia degrade itself with its Ukraine adventure, that leaves the only, because they didn't consider Russia an enemy per se, but they didn't really consider it an ally or a friend either. Now, from China's perspective, the only issues it has in terms of large adversarial powers, or even just potentially adversarial powers, is just us over here and India. And India has seemingly made it pretty clear that they've chosen Pakistan as the one they're willing to go to war with over water supply, because Pakistan is obviously a much easier opponent and is already facing internal geopolitical fracturing issues anyways. Although India and Pakistan does carry a bigger weight in terms of risk of someone using nuclear weapons. But that's beside the point. We'll deal with that another time. So they also now, because of those indicated actions of recent years, view India as kind of, we'll draw one line, view India as kind of, uh, they're not off the table. They haven't withdrawn, but they have pushed their chair back from the card table. They're not like sitting up in the game, in China's view at least. So to them now, the only ones at the table in terms of those who they consider a peer adversary is us, and those who are not peers but are adversarial, obviously Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, plus the Aussies down there. As small as the Aussie military is, they always show up to everything because they just love some violence. And previously, the Philippines, almost certainly as part of another, whether on their own or at the behest of the CIA, probably at the behest of the CIA slash Pentagon, uh, the Philippines for about 10 years was running a pretty decent psyop of acting through the 2010s and even early 2020s like they wanted to be more buddies with China. But then 2 years ago, completely 180'd and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, actually, we're gonna like double our military size, and the U.S. is coming back in, and we're gonna let them build like a bunch of new bases here again." So that that was a pretty blatant. If you consider a decade as long term, then you can call it long term. That was a pretty blatant long term psyop on the Philippines part. Okay. Wow. There's a lot to scroll back up to. Where do we go? It's not weird that he would choose Taiwan. Again, you're you're projecting a sense of resource mindedness and rational action onto other people and like decision makers, without looking at like what they indicate and their prior patterns. Uh, Z is fully into the cultural Chinese greatness thing. There's kind of a reason why he's done the Hanification of a bunch of places, Mongols, Tibetans, genociding few million Uyghurs that I'm sure I don't get. I don't. The Russian bots have not been as prevalent on any social media anymore. The Wu Mao bots from China, I don't know what it stands for, but I think Wu Mao is one of the names of like their intelligence agency. Uh, they've been a lot more active still in like denying the Uyghur stuff. Uh, you know, they're still in those re-education camps. They're just so happy there that they don't want to leave. The first ones they've been there since 2014. It's just so lovely in the camps. Why would they ever want to leave the camps? They're not dead. They're just happy there. So that he's been doing all the Hanification stuff, some historical rewritings about what is and isn't China, you know, just like Putin, just like everybody else. And this Taiwan is culturally or socio-culturally, psychologically, a thorn that is so detrimental to the narrative of everything. This needs to be brought back. This needs to be done away with. From they Z and a lot of those working everything in China place way more value on the like cultural success and proof of supremacy, proof of Chinese unity stuff than they do on like invading Siberia to get access to diamonds or whatever. This you like this is effectively the best thing to compare it to. I know a lot of Chinese are agnostic or atheist, but this this spiritually means something to them. Like on what two people of any kind of faith, what in the same way you consider things, I consider things at a spiritual level. That is like the way Z views this. It's above rationality. Let's see, work my way down. Taiwan has no nukes, but uh, after this, it's gonna get some. Yeah, quite a lot of people are going to want nukes at the very least. Let's see. Oops, no, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah, after all this, there's a list of countries that I guarantee you, are going for nukes, and those that at the very least will want them. Uh, I will flat out guarantee you, post Russia Ukraine conflict, Ukraine is remaking nukes. Poland, one way or another, Poland is grabbing some nukes. Turkey, we already know, is after nukes. Saudi Arabia has been actively pursuing nukes and even gave a lump sum payment of $2 billion previously for nuclear weapons secrets. So they're not even quiet about that part. Uh, Finland might even might even quietly make some. South Korea absolutely is going to make some. And Taiwan, post invasion, absolutely is going to make some. And given that Japan has been willing, at the very least, to go down the rearmament pathway, granted, it took us kind of pushing them to do it, there has been a surprising level of willingness of consideration of nukes in their government in very recent, like just the last year talks. That is something. quite literally no one would have ever actually assumed would happen up until this exact point. But yeah, that's the list I would present to you at face value of countries that are, as I said, for each one at different stages, are either A, absolutely going to in get nukes or go for nukes, or in some cases like Ukraine, uh, get nukes again, remake nukes. So yeah, the nuclear nations number is not going to stay capped at 9 or 8 or whatever it is. It is absolutely going to go into double digits. It's going to get close to 20. Okay, then continue down. Okay, we got a lot. Yeah, but they've said a lot of things. Not well, not they also. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember, but they also said they were, not not going to not they were not going to enter Gaza. They also said that. They also said they weren't going to invade southern Lebanon and bomb Lebanon. They also said they weren't going to engage in an air campaign with Iran, but they did that too. Then they also said that they were going to leave Gaza, and that was over a year ago. They have not left at all. They also said, I don't know if you remember, they said they were going to exit southern Lebanon and they were going to leave the little occupation zone they established past the already existing occupation zone in Syria. They have done neither of those. So, yeah, the the government in Israel says they're not going to deport the Gazans to anywhere. That does not actually mean anything. Ugh. Many governments say many things. I also I had classmates way back in high school, back in the ancient times, back in like 2010, because I'm 32. I'm 32 and a half now. I'm an ancient, decaying old man. I had classmates who said a lot of things, like one classmate who claimed that he he had sex with 100 girls in one school year. He said it. I'm sure it must be true then. Let's see. Sudan, socialist approach for Sudan. Uh, uh, the the conflict in Sudan's not really like about government hype. This is kind of just the 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 coup d'état conundrum of where you had two people who don't like each other, but they also didn't like the guy who was in power. So they agreed to team up to get rid of the guy in power and that they would fight each other afterwards. And so they got rid of him, and now they're fighting each other afterwards, just like they initially said they were going to. But that carries a counterweight of the fact that the fighting has disrupted, distribution of food supplies and medical supplies, and has thus resulted in the deaths of something like 2 million people at this point. But Sudan's not getting any kind of immediate intervention because it's not doesn't have that heavy of a weight on the global supply/slash economic impact scale. Yeah, same reason why no one really cared about Ethiopia genociding the Tigrays or the people of Amara that the Ethiopian government's trying to get rid of now. But if South Africa, like I said, if South Africa's power grid collapsed completely, outside help would rush in to restore it because we can't actually completely lose the platinum group metal supply or the manganese supply or the chromium supply or the zircon supply or the now emerging rare earth metal supply. And also, and also if some kind of conflict erupted in South Africa out of nowhere, South Africa would get an intervention immediately, as would actually the Congo if the conflict disrupted anything. Because technically, Uganda, alongside Rwanda and Burundi, have been invading the Congo, but the supplies have not stopped. The tantalum, the thing that they're after the mines of, has continued flowing to the outside world. It's just that it goes through them because they want the money from it. There was conflict with different militant groups in the South in the past that threatened to disrupt the cobalt and copper supplies, but it did not actually get to that point. Uh, the rest of the world kind of twisted Kinshasa's arm and told them to get that under control or else we will. And it turned out Kinshasa, Congolese government, was actually surprisingly capable of doing so if they actually tried to. But if everything broke down and those supplies actually stopped, then the Congo would actually get an intervention, which is also uh, the reason why, except in this time it's oil and gas, is the reason why the U.S. is through striking ISIS locations in northern Nigeria, because the Nigerian government informed us that they were afraid of a potential uh, aggressive breakthrough of sorts and potential cascade of failures that might endanger outgoing supplies to the global market. So, for anyone who somehow wasn't aware why no one's doing anything for Sudan, but the moment things look slightly bad in Nigeria, Nigeria is immediately uh, getting getting to just draw dots on a map and having us rain cruise missiles on whoever they point at. Uh, common people, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm well aware of that. Like, I mean, I like I said, my regarding my would be indie animated series. Hold on, I have to actually go to that. The person who does the character art and stuff for the characters in the story uh, is my friend Anya from Belarus. So I don't it I'm not someone who's claiming that people in country X who is doing thing Y are like complicit in doing thing Y. I did I did previously have former associates in some like Discord chats from Russia who did like pull a 180 after the war started and went like full Z mode. But the other three people from said Discord association stayed normal for the most part. Is this it's busted again? Go out here, delete, back to mouse, and fixed. Okay. I'll scroll through the rest of chat in a second, but Ukraine and Russia front for this time. Continued strikes on refineries and storage depots, as well as the one of the major power plants in the Belgorod Oriol area, resulted in decently sized blackout. There the power goes. I think here, yeah, here was the actual strike on the plant itself. Uh, and the major one that got struck, the major storage depot was on Crimea, if I remember correctly. Or no, sorry, it was a fuel train because most of the actual storage tanks on Crimea have been destroyed. So they're having to ship a lot more of it in by train over the bridge. And the latest train that just came in was the one that was hit a few hours ago. And so that went big boom and is burning, uh, as Trump would say, I guess. What's his that quote he uses? Very bigly. It is very bigly burning. So there wasn't that much new there. Uh, I still feel like there was. I still feel like something happened with India that I'm forgetting about. But the problem is that I forgot about it. So whatever it was may have to wait until next time. Let's see. No, that that does not. That it actually kind of means the. Ironically, it kind of means the opposite. It actually reduces the amount of even conventional stuff that happens. Like there, I've said this before. There's only two real circumstances where someone would actually use nuclear weapons. The first one that is a guarantee is Israel. If like in the past, uh, the like entire Arab world, as they threatened to once the war started in 2023, if the entire like Islamic world did a Zerg rush on Israel and actually penetrated past Israel's like defensive borders, and I believe the doctrine for Israel states uh, is 10% in, like 10 or 15% in into the country itself. Israel would activate what they refer to as the Samson doctrine, in which they would at first launch a nuke, uh, probably on a force concentration of the like invading forces. Oops, that's too big. Or on a like large military installation, maybe someplace or something important like the Suez Canal, as an initial one one flag last chance warning. And if the press into Israel continued after that, then they would immediately nuke every major city in the surrounding Middle East area of participant countries. And under the assumption that Iran was still under the current regime, even if Iran wasn't part of it, they would still nuke Tehran and Isfahan anyways, just for fun. But they were assuming it was like the same alliance as back in the 60s and 40s. They would, if no one responded to the first one warning nuke, they would nuke Cairo, Alexandria, Suez, Beirut, Damascus, Aleppo, Amman, Aqaba down in southern Jordan, Riyadh, uh, Baghdad. assuming Saudi Arabia and Iraq were a part of it, and also just for fun, they nuked Tehran and Isfahan alongside it. That is the one absolute guarantee of nukes would be used in this circumstance. The other, again, but it requires a specific thing to happen. The only other place where nuclear weapons may actually be used is the upcoming inevitable uh, India Pakistan conflict over water. Remember, India is depleting its groundwater, and the first portions, critical portions that underlie its large agricultural plains, will be running dry around 2040 or the early 2040s, and then the rest will fall subsequently thereafter. So, preemptively, since it only has two real options to supplement that water supply, it can either build massive infrastructure to divert water from the Brahmaputra over to India, which would kill off Bangladesh, which they don't want to do. But to do that, they have to bomb all the dams and water diversion pipeline infrastructure that China has built, because China is trying to divert that river's water to supplement the depleting supplies of their own aquifers. So that option is that's one of them, but it looks like, based on the choices they've been making, India has picked Pakistan, because the other option would be to divert the water from the Indus River down into their agricultural plains to use that. However, depending on the scale at which how much of it they divert, that would starve India. That would massively kill Pakistan's agriculture, and would cause the deaths of at least tens of millions, which Pakistan would not just take lying down. And also, India would kind of probably want to gain more control over this area so that they can start from a lower portion of the river, have more to divert to begin with, which would require war with Pakistan in the first place. But even just diverting the river altogether will result in this war, which uh, probably has a fair enough chance of Pakistan maybe using some nuclear weapons, at least firing them as like a last resort, as a one final threat measure to try to get India to back off of it. But globally, it would not do too much, because Pakistan doesn't have that many. Neither does India, and they both do not have really large yield warheads. And also, remember, uh, every nation on Earth except North Korea has airburst designed warheads, as in blast happens up here above the ground. So, limit of impacted radiation is like here. So, you don't get an irradiated ground that then gets sucked up by the mushroom cloud and spread throughout the earth and rains poison dust on everyone. A ground burst, like the initial Trinity test out in New Mexico, that irradiates the ground, which then gets sucked up in the mushroom cloud and then rains down on surrounding area. And the government has rejected all lawsuits in the decades following those initial tests from people in the surrounding towns who ended up getting horrific cancers and leukemia even just a few years afterwards. Uh, so it's only ground bursting that does the whole nuclear winter thing to begin with. But even if they were ground bursts, there's not they don't have enough between them to really do it to anyone but themselves, at least. The one major issue to the outside world at large will just be the enormous price shocks and surges from it happening, and also assuming the pharmaceutical industry has not diversified by that time, if this happens, will be potential supply disruptions if Pakistan uses any nukes on the Gujarat region and if they actually get through India's air defenses. Because Gujarat region is where like a third of the medications on Earth are made at this point in pharmaceutical factories and labs, which is again it kind of repeating the China problem with a lot of like supply concentration, but now repeating it with India with medicine. This is never a good idea, no matter how friendly the country is. And even if you wanted it like all in India, concentrating it in one specific place is like double the stupidity. So like even like an earthquake out in the Indo-Pacific, like causing a bad tsunami to potentially disrupt some of this stuff. I would just really appreciate uh, a reversion away from stupidity on like everyone's part worldwide. But those are the only two places and circumstances where you would, and or in this case, put an M for maybe, here a W for would, see anyone actually use nukes. Because no one who has like real supplies, like China, Russia, or us over here in the U.S., France, Britain, etc. No one who has like real supplies and who has quote unquote world ending arsenals, they would not actually do that unless you really strategically, uh, really strategically nuked specific things. But anyone who has quote unquote world ending supplies is never actually going to use them. That's not the point of them. The point of getting nukes is to make sure that no one else uses nukes, or at least uses them in a severe way, and doubly to prevent anyone from like actually invading you because no one wants to take the chance that maybe you will use nukes in even a limited self-defense fashion. Uh, uh, no, Afghanistan's not really. I mean, their population will continue growing, but territorially, they are more likely to fragment. Like they are hugely likely to lose their Balochistan portion alongside Iran and Pakistan. Like the Afghanistan is internally fragmented between different groups. I mean, you have the primary uh, composition in the middle, which is mostly, I believe the term is Pashtun, and even that is split amongst different tribes. But a, no one internally likes the Taliban, anyways. B, the Taliban sucks at conventional war. They're great at insurgency and planting roadside bombs and ambushes in the mountains, which is how they chase everybody out, whoever tries to occupy Afghanistan. But they're not, they would not like open field be able to engage anyone in an actual like military conflict of conquest. They don't even have an actual air force. They have parade helicopters, but there's a far more likely chance of Tajikistan actually invading and seizing the Tajik portion of Afghanistan than there is Afghanistan actually expanding into anybody. But the most likely Afghan war in the immediate future is between Pakistan and Afghanistan because the Taliban psychologically does not seem to be able to accept life outside of jihad. So, for no known reason they've been constantly firing RPGs at like border outposts with Pakistan and trying to provoke Pakistan into a fight for, again, no discernible real gain. So the only thing I can go with is that one psychological analysis that guy did a few years back about how they really don't seem to be able to cope with life outside of war. So they might just be trying to start one with Pakistan because they want an endless war. They don't know how to really roll in any other sort of lifestyle. And if they do that, that might also kind of further further a kind of fracturing. Further up. Where did I even leave off? Uh, spirit, spiritually. Okay, that was on the Taiwan stuff. Nuclear energy. That is the best, obviously. Nice, what nice style. I'm assuming you mean the characters that Anya drew. Yeah, those are Andim, Elem, and Mepria from the fictional world that Dream War takes place in. She can only do one a month uh, sh- because she also has to do like commission artwork so she can actually get paid. And looks like that was the end of chat so far, at least. Okay, was there any other super chats? No, just Nathan. Okay, so £2 is a little over 2 million. So that's close to the end. And or sorry, that's a little over two dollars, which equates to 2 million people on the annual income map. Since back up home in Alaska, I was able to live off of a little over 8 grand a year. So I figured while we're on the journey of me trying to return to earning about 8 mil or $8,000 a year, 8 million a year would be awesome. I'd end up just giving away most of that, but trying to return to 8,000 a year or at least anything close to it. There's about 8 billion people on the planet, so $1 equals 1 million people. And so, however much total I managed to get throughout the year, that is how many people get to survive the end of the world. And I'll be anytime money comes in, whether through Patreon, ad revenue, or super chats or PayPal one-time stuff, I'll be arbitrarily selecting a country and or region that thus gets spared from the apocalypse. So, £2 from Nathan is a bit over $2. Let's see. We already spared Lithuania, which has about 2 million plus. So I don't want to repeat and do another European place. Where else can we go? Has about 2 million. Uh, how many are in Equatorial Guinea? I think like 1.5. About South America or Jamaica. Jamaica has about 2.5 million. So getting round down, we'll say that counts. There you go. Nathan saved Jamaica. And Jamaica gets to survive the end of the world. Ranch Seuss? Do you mean sauce? The only Sue, or the only Sue I'm familiar with is I think supposed to be the French word or the French version of hours, I think. So if you mean ranch sauce, as in like the stuff you pour on food, then no. I have always found ranch dressing to be disgusting. I also don't like mayonnaise either. And in the mustard versus ketchup war, I am on the side of ketchup. Okay. Unless anything else comes up other than just that answer, if there's any other questions or super chatting or anything, I'll wait for that about 30 seconds, since that's the usual delay time between when I say something and when you guys get it. And I went drastically over time. I was supposed to keep this under an hour. I have failed, but I'll wait about 30 seconds. And if nothing else comes up, then that's going to be it. It looks like everybody's out. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. All right. I'll see you.